Hey everybody, Shark Scrapper. We have an interesting PC comparison video today. Come on, let's dive in. Those of you that have been watching my series here for a little bit, you know that I recently brought in 4 pallets of PCs and another pallet of power supplies. Most of the PCs are these Optiplex 780s. I mean, literally hundreds of them. But there's also a handful of these 745s. I thought it might be fun to take a look at what the difference is. They're very closely related to each other as models. They're almost identical in form factor. Let's see what they look like inside. Come on, let's dive in. Well, from the aft side, they don't look very different. They both still have the 2 screws to release the power supply inside. Boards are on the same configuration. So far, nothing's standing out for me. All right, so we've got the 745 here, we've got the 780. I'm going to try to keep these, lined up so that we don't get confused. They both open the same way with this latch. The configuration looks very much the same. The heat sinks look very different though. So that's going to be a potential interest. All right, so, and remember, this one is the one that is new for us, the 745. So this is the 745, this is the 780. We're used to seeing this one. CD-ROM in the same place. And there's screws to open this one. And there's screws for that one. Set you guys up there. So the 780 has these extra card readers here. That would have gone right in here. The 745 did not have that, although it had the space for one. But that was not present. We still have to take off the same screw, and looks like we're going to get a very similar kind of mid-grade board here. So those look almost identical. Power supplies look like they're about the same. Here, wait a minute. Get this wire out of here. That cable is the same. We've still got the SATA connectors here on both of them. Those are the same. We've got a similar, so this is a little bit older style power connection in the 745 compared to the 780s. Power supply still comes out pretty much the same way. I think they look like they're coming out the same way. This was the cable that connected that, so that's one difference. This one had 2 RAMs, but as we saw when we were scrapping these out before, the RAM configurations were very inconsistent. Now the 745 has these half sticks. I don't know if it was common for the model or just the way these happen to play out. Not quite sure. Both of them can accept 4 RAM. recall with the 780s, we have this nice chunky aluminum heatsink. With the 745s, oh, that's nice. So the 745 has copper aluminum heatsink. My yard buys these as copper aluminum radiators, and there isn't even any trash on this that needs to come off. All right, so our 780 is using the Intel E7500. It was manufactured in 06. Intel Core 2 Duo. We compare that to what is in the 745. And the 745 is using the Intel Pentium D, also 06. Fans. Board layout is board configuration, very similar here. Now there are some slight nuances that you'll see when I get these boards out to take a look at. Much the same way, just pop off the one end, pry them out. Now we can get the motherboard out easily enough. This was leftover wire to the power supply. When you look at these side by side like this, there are some, there we go. There are some minor nuances going on here. So notice that these gold-plated pins, larger, very different from these gold-plated pins. So you had your slots for your PCI slot cards here. Otherwise, these are very similar kind of arrangements here. So these boards will probably be very close in weight and value. Well, the value per pound is the same. We can go over and take a look at what the weights are and see if there's any big difference there. Remember, the 780, the 745 has the gold plating. 745 has the heavy gold plating. So our 780 motherboard weighs in at 1.19 pound. And the 745 board weighs in at 1.21 pounds, so just a tiny little bit heavier. So here's the copper aluminum heatsink, copper aluminum radiator from the 745 at 0.6 pounds. And here's the all aluminum heatsink from the 780 at 0.78 pounds. Now, just out of curiosity, the RAM from the 780 weighs in at 0.07 pounds, and the RAM from the 745 weighs in at 0.05 pounds. Given that RAM is going for $22 a pound, yeah, there's a little bit of difference there. So the CD-ROM board from the 780 weighs 0.05 pounds. And the CD board from the 745 weighs twice as much at 0.1. So it has twice the value. Well, there's our comparisons and our differences side by side. Doesn't look like a whole lot of difference. RAM stick's a little bit different. The heat sinks are a little bit different. Is that going to make a huge difference in the value of these things? Well, let's go ask Geek Shark. Man, I tell you what, I'm getting so frustrated with dirty, sweaty, worky Shark. You know, he went through all that trouble to weigh out 10 of those 780s so we could do that very detailed cost weighted average of the 780s. And now he does a one-to-one comparison between the 780 and the 745. He could have spent a couple hours digging through those 300 plus computers and found a couple more 745s so that we could have done a more interesting analysis. I mean, trying to get this guy to put the time in to get me the numbers that, all right, anyway, we're going to do the best we can here. So we're going to make certain assumptions. What you see in the gold color here are all the things that that the other dirty, sweaty, ugly shark didn't bother to weigh out. So we're going to assume that those are the same weights. So our shred is most likely the same between both of them. The CPUs, the power supplies, the insulated copper wire, although I think the insulated copper wire would have been a little bit different between them, but it's too late now. That stupid, dirty, sweaty shark. Anyway, fans and the mid-grade printed circuit boards. Again, we're just going to assume that those are the same. They all look pretty close to the same, so we're going to assume they're the same. So what was different that Shark bothered to weigh out? So the motherboards, so in the 780, the motherboard came in at 1.19 pounds, and in the 745 it was a little bit heavier, so we got a little more money for that. The RAM sticks were bigger in the 780, so they weighed more, and that got us $1.54. The RAM sticks in the 745 were those little half kind of things. They only weighed in at 0.05 pounds, so we only got $1.10. So yeah, it doesn't seem like a lot of weight difference, but when you're talking $22 a pound, those little weight differences can make a difference. The really big difference was with the heat sinks. So in the 780, it was an aluminum heat sink at 60 cents a pound. So we ended up with a whopping 45 cents. The 745 had a copper aluminum heat sink. We get paid $1.70 a pound for those. So even though it weighed a little bit less than the aluminum heat sink, it brought us a much greater value at $1.02. And then the other big difference was the CD-ROM boards. The 780 CD-ROM board was half the weight of the 745 board, so we got twice as much money for the 745. The bottom line result was that the 745 was getting us more money, 38 more cents for that PC compared with $6.02 for the 780. So yeah, the 745, the older technology, things weighed up just a little bit more. And most of the difference, though, you can see we're talking about 38 cents difference. This is going to be right up here in this power supply. This is what made the big difference for us right there. I don't know what Geek Shark is complaining about. I get him all kinds of numbers to play with. Never happy. Here's links to take you back to that 780 analysis so you can see what he's talking about.